So we had to go through another route to get me here. A little bit of issues today, but I am here and I'm happy to be here. We are at our third to last class. We have two more classes after this, which is crazy. Today's class, we're going to be talking about companion planting. So that is one of my favorite things to do. It does a bunch of different things. You could deter pests by companion planting. You could do weed suppression. You could reduce the need for pesticides based on whatever you're planting. And you could also attract beneficial insects and thus create a higher yield for whatever you plant. And I'm a little flustered because I came in on the whim, but I want to also put a couple things in the chat like I normally do for you guys before we really get into it. And then in the meantime, if this is your first class here, my name is Ti and I'm a gardener in New Jersey. My zone is 7B, and I always like to include this planting calendar for you guys because this allows you to go ahead and figure out your zone as well. So it doesn't seem like I am just saying something that's out in the wind. So I like to include that. And then I also like to include the channel. I have a YouTube channel, and you're able to also see the videos after they're saved. I'll put it up for you guys so you could follow here. And you could also ask questions anytime during the presentation. Feel free to put a hands up like Karen did. And whenever you put a hands up, then I'll ask you to unmute yourself and you could ask the question verbally, or you could write out your questions in the chat. I like a open dialogue type of class, so feel free, but no pressure, just do whatever you're comfortable with. So going back to companion planting, so this is a good way to, add beauty to your garden. As a vegetable gardener, when I first started gardening, I just had vegetables, your lettuce, your kale. It was just like a lot of green. If there was any color added, it was mostly from, let's say, a cucumber flower or a squash flower. That was the most color I had in my garden. So you'll find as you practice more of a companion planting, you'll start adding flowers and just different crops that brings different colors into your garden and thus making a more beautiful garden. And then you also create a more biodiverse environment. I know for farmers and such, they'll have more of a monoculture where they'll have one specific plant and there's just rows and rows of that one plant. You'll try to not do something like that because let's say, for example, as a organic gardener, you encounter some type of pest that is mainly trying to take out like tomatoes. If you just have rows and rows of tomatoes in one specific spot and nothing else, what's going to happen is you're most likely going to lose all of those tomatoes versus when you have a biodiversity and a mix of different plants. Your plant, the pests may get attracted to one tomato plant, but then you have things that are surrounded your other tomatoes, and that kind of deters it, or you'll have some crops that are trap crops, and I'll go into more of the definition for those terms as I go into it more. But you just want to create almost like a little bit of confusion for your different pests, where maybe they're used to the smell of the tomato leaves. I know if any of you have grown tomatoes or have picked up tomatoes from the garden and you just had the leaves, if you smell that leaves, you could definitely tell that that is a tomato plant. plant. You don't even have to be able to identify the leaf or anything. So that's how the pests get attracted to some particular plants. They have a specific smell. So when they're looking for that specific smell or smelling for that specific smell, if you have different things around them that throws off that smell a little bit, that kind of helps your plant to survive and not get eaten up by that specific pest. So you're creating basically a great ecosystem. You're having different things that work vertically, that works on the ground, that works down into the soil. And that's just the best way to garden to make sure that, like I said before, you're getting higher yields because not a lot of your crops are dying out because of the different pests that are coming in. And then you're also just creating a better environment for your beneficial insects. So let's say, for example, one of the most known companion planting is the Native American Three Sisters method. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but they have three things growing together. They have the corn, they have the squash, and they have the bean. And the bean is a climbing bean. There's bush bean and there's climbing bean. This one is for the climbing bean, or mostly on the packet, you'll see pole beans. So what happens is they'll plant the corn firstly, and the corn will work as kind of a stake or a trellis for the climbing bean, which you'll plant maybe a week or two after you plant the corn. And what happens is those kind of work together because the beans get support from the corn. And then with the root system of the beans, they kind of put out nitrogen into the soil. And then the corn is able to tap into that and then use that for their leafy greens. So that is a companion right there. And then to add on top of that now, you add the squash, which covers the ground, which usually when you're growing corn and beans, it's in the summer months. That's when those type of crops thrive. But sometimes that could be a little bit too intense for the root system. So you'll have the squash coming into that equation now. And the squash will essentially cover the soil, which prevents the roots from drying out too much, which gives it a little bit of shade. And then the squash also suppresses the weeds, and it could also benefit from the nitrogen that the bean plant is putting into the soil. So I am going to show you guys a little chart that could help you with deciding what you should. Oh, I can't. Oh gosh. Okay. So I'm going to read it all. I'm going to put it in the chat for you guys. Um, a lot of my normal access I'm not able to do. So I'm going to put it in the chat, and maybe you guys can look at it as I talk about it a bit. So it goes into the different garden plants, and then it has a other table that shows what are good companions for that plant, then another table of how they help the plants by being a companion. But there's also a side that shows the bad companions. So for example, in my garden, I have, oh, I can't even show you that either. I have a bed, and it has both garlic, broccoli, and it has peas growing on the trellis. Normally, they say for peas, you don't want to grow them with garlic because they need different levels of fertilization. So that's something to also consider, is what your plant needs in terms of watering and fertilizing. Beans and garlic need different levels of fertilizing. Your beans need a lot of nitrogen, whereas you don't want to put too much nitrogen on your garlic because then it will focus more on the leafy growth above instead of creating that bulb below. So that's something to also consider when you're putting things together and therefore having to water it or fertilize it together. And then you'll say the beans aren't supposed to go with the garlic because when you then go to harvest the garlic, the beans, the root system of the peas and such could be disturbed, and you don't want that. But sometimes, a lot of these things aren't scientifically proven. And I like to try things. So I will encourage you, even though it may say that it's bad to have these together, I personally like to go ahead and give it a shot, especially when I plan for certain things like how that ended up happening was I planned for the garlic to be there. I realized that there was still some space between the garlic, and I had some extra broccolis, and I was like, oh, that is perfect because then the smell of the garlic will deter the pest that normally comes for the broccoli, which is like the white cabbage butterfly. And so that kind of works well together. But then I didn't have anything trellising, and it's a waste to kind of have a trellis there and nothing is growing up with. So you want to kind of utilize your space as much as you possibly can. So I went ahead and added some peas on that trellis. So it worked out that, yes, they don't necessarily want to be next to each other, but because of how they're placed, I'm able to fertilize the peas a little bit more than I need to for the garlic and the broccoli. So it kind of works well. So sometimes it's just giving it a little bit more space instead of not putting it together at all. And then there are things like putting in the flowers in your garden, which attracts a lot of beneficial pollinators. And those pollinators will be really beneficial for things or vegetables that are not self-fertile. And by self-fertile, I mean the vegetables that do not put out fruit on their own without being pollinated by a pollinator. I know for like squash, zucchinis, things of that nature, it's good to have flowers that bring in those pollinators to pollinate those plants. There's also things that are called trap crops or sacrificial crops. And these are crops that you kind of put out that you know, okay, it's just going to bring in these pests that you don't want, but they'll kind of chew and go crazy on this specific plant. And while they're doing that, the things that you do want to save, they're not bothered with that, right? So let's say, for example, I have a whole bed of broccoli and cabbage. A really good trap crop for that is nasturtiums. So the nasturtiums, they bring in beneficial insects, but they also attract things like aphids and I believe cabbage moth as well, or hornworms. So they also work well for tomatoes. So this particular crop, it's a beautiful flower, but the leaves, these insects are attracted to the leaves. So while my brassicas get to, be nice and beautiful, I have this nasturtium that's just being eaten up by the pests, but they're not trying to get to my cabbages and stuff. So I would essentially be using the nasturtium as a trap crop. So that's something that I'll be utilizing when I do my second round of brassicas for the fall months because nasturtium likes it a little bit hotter. And right now it's still pretty cool. So, that's something to also think about is what can I use that is good for different seasons? Some things are good for the cooler seasons, whereas some things are better for the warmer seasons. And then you have things like your garlic, your onion, your chives, your marigolds also that have that intense smell. And that intense smell could ward off a lot of pests, like not only small pests, but larger pests like your bunnies, sometimes your deers. That smell, or maybe taking that nibble and having that garlicky onion taste, just, push them away. So I like to line a lot of my beds, like the entry of my garden beds. I'll put chives there. And the chives also push out beautiful, like they have a white or a purple variety. So they push out these beautiful flowers that also attract some more beneficial insects. So you kind of get like a three in one with that plant. So that's something to think about, especially if you don't have a lot of space. You don't have to, fill your garden with a bunch of different things. You could kind of research and look into things that gives you multiple multiple uses for that one specific crop. So that is really good. There's also for my strawberries, I also plant them with onions, that onion smell, and they're right in my front yard. And the berries, they're not being bothered much by the birds or any of those insects. I mean, there's a nibble here and there, but for the most part, if I didn't interplant them with the onions and having that aroma around it, I don't think I would be having a lot of strawberries to share with my daughters. They really love these strawberry patches. I also try to, when it comes to companions, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, it repels an insect or it traps an insect. It could just be a better utilization for the space. I have a good amount of fruit trees in my yard. And what I realize is I like to limb up my trees to a certain point, not too tall, because I still want like little hands to reach the fruit. But when there's space underneath now, I go ahead and maybe add some more strawberries underneath because then that will provide a nice additional fruit for me, but it'll also create a beautiful ground cover that's edible, and then it suppresses the weeds that may come underneath that fruit tree. So it's kind of like a two-in-one. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for pests or anything like that. It could also be, like I say, for weed suppression as well. And then I have other things like I do my garlic with onions, and then between my onions, I have beets. So that's also a good companion plant. Think about, like I say, things growing up, things growing down, and things growing around is my kind of main thing. You could do the same thing when it comes to planting in containers. Think the same thing. If you put a tomato in a container, go ahead and add some basils around that tomato plant in the container. And then you could also maybe sprinkle some carrot seeds or some beet seeds, something that could also grow down into that soil, some onions. Just try to utilize the space around your plant as much as possible. Um, I just want to see, I had some more things to show you guys. Unfortunately, I don't have the access here to show you some photos. Let's see. Mm.
You have access with sharing now.
Oh, I do. Oh, perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so
You're welcome.
let me share some photos for you guys. I quickly went out and snapped some photos. So here's what I'm talking about with I have this peach tree, and then underneath I went ahead and add some strawberries, and it looks pretty sparse right now. But the great thing about strawberries is it will throw out what's called runners. So that's their way of multiplying themselves. So essentially you could have strawberries forever. Like you could plant one strawberry plant and end up with multitudes of strawberries because it reproduces itself over time. So over time, this area underneath my fruit tree is going to be completely filled with strawberries. And then we have some peppers in a container, and I went ahead and added some viola pansies. I don't remember which one it is, but I went ahead and added some flowers because my peppers are going to need pollinators. So I like to add flowers whenever I plant anything in containers. That way it draws the pollinators to my plant and they could pollinate and give me good pepper plants. And then this bed is the one that I was referring to that has the garlic, the broccolis, and the peas over on the right-hand side. And you could see they're working really well together. The garlic is able to push through. This is specifically the elephant garlic, so it's a bigger garlic. It's actually part of the leek family. It's not supposedly a garlic, but you can see it's pushing through really well. It's not having a problem. Everything looks nice and green. Nobody is essentially taking away nutrients from each other. When you see plants being compacted or planted as close as I have, you are going to need to come in and add some granular fertilizer or some liquid fertilizer whenever you see that the nourishment of your plants is going down. And a good indicator of that is just looking at the leaves, and the leaves will kind of tell you what's going on with your plants. And then here, I had some space at the front part of the other side that has, I think, garlic behind. I have another variety of pea growing up the trellis. And then in front, I was just like, I have space. Let me pop in some broccoli plants there as well. There's some onions in there somewhere. It's not getting as much light, but I'm still going to be able to either harvest it as just a spring onion or a small onion bulb. So the point is to just continue to utilize every bit of space that you have. If you have any space, no matter what the companion chart says, pop it in. If it doesn't work, take it out. And then some more peppers here with the pansies and violas. You just have a better look at the peas. This is I forgot the specific name, but it grows a yellow pea pod, which is really nice. I like to do different colors in the garden, just things that you don't normally get at the grocery store. That's the best part of growing your own, is to just try these different things. And then this is the bed that I have onions. So I have purple onions in here. I have the I have the beets in here, and then I also have something called purslane, and that I don't plant. It grows naturally in my garden. And initially, I was going ahead and weeding it out, but then I took a picture, and it's actually a really good leafy green, and has a lot of nourishment for you. So it's very much edible. With weeds, anything that you don't want is a weed. So it could be something good, but if you don't want it, it's technically a weed. So if you have something growing in your garden and you're not sure what it is, I would say just take a picture and look at what it is first before weeding it out. Because technically, maybe if you don't want beets, that would be a weed to you. And here is the purple chives at the entrance of my garden. The purple chives is around, you could see here is the blueberry plant here as well. And then the broccolis and cabbages are in the background. So it kind of, this is to help with larger pests like the rabbits. I never see it going down here at all. It just takes another route or goes somewhere else. I also like to plant things in the space that I know rabbits or stuff are coming. So instead of going deep into the garden and getting to the things that I want to keep and harvest for myself, I'll use my extra starts and I'll put it at the entrance, and they'll snack on those instead of going in the garden. And by the time they're like snacking on that, usually I spot them before they get any deeper because they stop where I want them to stop, and then they kind of scurry away. So that's another use for the trap crop. And then you could see in the broccolis, I just planted some onions around, and the little plant here, this is a snapdragon that actually reseeded on its own. I would advise, if you're unsure about anything that may pop up in your garden, there's a lot of things that reseed themselves. Take a minute to just take a picture and watch that plant and see what it turns into, especially if you are getting into growing your own from seed. This is the amazing result of that. You're able to identify things when they're super small. So you're not picking it out as just weeds. You're leaving them to grow or putting them in a better place in your garden. And essentially, I was just getting some free snapdragons here at the bottom. So a few here. And then we have the carrots, and I ended up having to put chicken wire. So that's another pest prevention. I put chicken wire around this bed. But you could see I planted the carrots in the middle and I had some space over here that had nothing in it. And I had some onion starts and I popped the onion and shallot starts around the corners. And that also prevents pests from trying to go into it too much. Yes, when it's not covered with chicken wire, it's easier to go in and, try to snack on it and stuff. But sometimes when you have like a couple of deterrents for them, you're usually able to save your plants a lot more. So I've been chatting for a while. If you guys have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat. Um, or you could put your hands up and we will go ahead and, oh, Karen, go ahead and unmute yourself, Karen.
Hi, TI. This has been
Hi.
really great. I was taking so many notes, and
Yeah,
as always, I love when you give us websites and everything. I'm curious, and again, you might remember that I haven't started gardening yet. I'm still
right.
learning and all of
Hmm.
that. But would you say that overall, garlic and onions are just a one of the best type of things to plant as natural kind of pesticides, and they work pretty well if you want to put them around anything? Because honestly, that's two things that I plan to plant a lot of. So if
Hmm.
you're saying I'm in central Illinois, I think I'm 6A, plant growth place or region or whatever. And
Right.
that's what I wanted to hear from you. I want to plant a lot of garlic. I want to plant a lot of onions.
Hmm.
Are you saying I really can't go wrong just putting them near a lot of things?
Yeah, you definitely can't go wrong. And being that you're in a zone that doesn't have such a long growing period, I mean, it's a good amount of time. But let's say, for example, when you're starting stuff in early spring, you'll
Mm-hmm.
have those garlic plants already in place because you'll have to start them around September, October, having them in ground, the garlic specifically, not the onion. So
Mm-hmm.
having those already in place when you're coming into spring, putting in your brassicas and all of that stuff, just thinking about that beforehand and arranging them in a way that it borders most of
Mm,
your plants is really ideal. You cannot go wrong with garlic, onions, chives, marigolds. You can't go
excellent.
wrong. French marigolds specifically.
French marigolds. I'm writing all
Mhm.
this down, Ti, as usual.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Um, anything else?
Perfect. Perfect. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you talking to me specifically?
Yeah, yeah. I was asking if you
The
had
French
anything
marigolds
else.
and the garlic and the onions, and God, I love chives too. So
Yes, ties are
yeah,
amazing.
this is all a winner for me. And I just wanted to say I love the photos of your garden. I mean, that
Oh,
was
thank you.
perfect. I was
Thank
wondering about
you.
like with the chicken wire thing.
Yeah,
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thanks, Karen. And thanks for coming as usual. Appreciate you. I'm gonna mute your side for a minute. Yas said, what is best to grow inside veg and herbs? Like grow indoors? Can you
Yes,
clarify? Yes?
yes, indoors.
Oh, grow indoors. What's best veg and herbs to grow indoors? Okay. So the thing about growing indoors is that you will need some type of grow lights. I know you can kind of put things up to a window, but at only like a certain point. It starts being where the lighting is not ideal at a certain point, and you'll start getting really what's called leggy plants, where they'll just have like a long stem and they'll kind of lean over to where they're getting the
Yes,
most light. So you
that's what's
want to have,
happening.
huh?
That's what's happening with my broccoli.
Yeah, so you want to have a light system. I will grab a link for you with a light system. This light system will work well for leafy greens, so all your herbs and things of that nature. But whenever you are trying to grow fruit, you will need a different level of light system. This emits more rays to kind of replicate those of the sun. But what I should say though is if you can grow outside, try to do that because when it gets to the lighting system inside, you are going to be paying in terms of your electric bill. So that's something that, is not mentioned a lot, but
It's
is
a
going to
little
be up
bit,
there.
it's kind of problematic to grow outside. We have a garden, but
Mhm.
I live in New York City in an area where there's a different kind of a pest that you didn't
Is
mention.
it the rats?
I
Hmm.
call it a raccoon, but
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
And so I really can't grow outdoors, although
Hmm.
people do. So I just
Hmm.
leave it to flowers.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I'll think about the lighting system. That sounds excellent.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get you the lighting system for the regular greens. I know for the rodent big raccoon, they're like big raccoons at this point. And for New York City, I would try to use things like what's it called? Hardwire cloth, putting them in containers, keeping them elevated, wrapping your plants with the hardwire or putting that at the base is a good measure if you could possibly do that. In the meantime, I'm going to look for the link for you for the just the basic level of the lights for greens. Maybe you could message me. Free.
And while you're talking about that, because they have raised the beds, and I'm just still afraid that, because these are very smart animals. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of afraid to do all that. So I stick with
Mm-hmm.
the flowers for that. But
Okay.
I was trying to do lettuce or, spinach or something inside. And I bought lettuce from Home Depot,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't seem to grow. I'm looking at it now, and I have wonderful sunlight. So, do you recommend that indoors lettuce? I mean, how can you grow lettuce um, indoors?
You could not to cut you off, you could definitely grow lettuce with, and I'm just making sure that I'm giving you the right information, which is why I'm toddling through my phone. Um, Lettuce will definitely work well with the lighting system that I'm going to recommend for you. I put my email here. If you could shoot me an email, that way I could get the links for you, and I will do a little bit of research to find maybe instead of just investing in that lower level of light system, you could just go, ahead and get the higher level that could work both for the leafy greens and anything that's going to fruit. Uh, Definitely, I'll give you both options, but definitely lettuce grows really well with that light system. I've started my lettuce indoors, no problem at all. Started peas, all of that stuff, a lot of stuff indoors, and I haven't had any problems. I could have kept my lettuce, even my basils, my rosemary, my thyme, all of those things grow really well with just that light system. So I'll give you the two options if you send me an email, and then you could decide for yourself which ones you want.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome. And then TMG says, what are the best companion plants for stone fruits? Okay, so when it comes to that, I mean, it all depends on if you're trying to mitigate something with the fruits, but the only thing that I would advise is to not plant it too close to the trunk of the plant. You want to give the roots air to breathe. You don't want to almost stifle them too much with too much things underneath. So it's really up to you. If you just want to plant flowers, I will give them maybe at least 2 feet from the base of the trunk because anything that you plant too close and the root systems, it's going to be almost a fight kind of for nutrition, and you don't want your fruit trees, which is the main thing that you want, to be in competition with anything else. You could plant flowers. You could plant lavender is a good thing to plant underneath because you know that deters a lot of things with the intense smell. And then marigolds. Something with marigolds that I forgot to mention is that you want to make sure that you're using French marigolds, and it's also really good at deterring root nematode. No, not nematodes. What's it called? Let me check real quick on my notes. Root knot. And this is a like microscopic nematodes that affects the roots of like tomatoes and things like that. But you want to make sure that the roots of the marigolds stay in the soil. And that's how the plants that's being affected by that insect will go ahead and take the benefits from the roots of the marigold plant to kind of protect themselves from that microscopic insect. So, you know, the French marigolds has that intense smell, but if you're trying to prevent a root knot, that benefit happens with the root system. So let's say, for example, you're done with the marigold and you want to take it out, just cut it from if this is the soil level and this is the marigold above, you want to cut it here, leave the roots in, and you could discard the rest. That way the plant could take whatever it needs to take from the root system. There's any other questions? Okay, Mary, I'm gonna ask to unmute. You could go ahead, Mary.
Are you talking me and
Yeah,
okay.
I'm Washington. Did I just call you? Was it Mary or
It's Michelle. Don't worry.
Michelle?
I've been called worse.
Go ahead, Michelle. Sorry.
I may have better luck with being called Mary. With herbs. So my herbs are really growing a lot.
Nice.
So now I want to preserve them. Have you had any luck with like infusing with oil or doing anything like that with I'm gonna dry some and
Mm-hmm.
so I can cook with it and all of that. But I was thinking about, infusing with oil or I don't know what else I can do.
You can also blend them with some olive oil
Mm-hmm.
and put them in a ice tray and freeze them. That way they're kind of, frozen and you could then toss them all in like a Ziploc bag. For example, your basil, you could use some olive oil with that. Blend them together, put them in the ice cube or just lay it flat on a baking sheet with parchment paper, let it freeze for a bit. Then you could chop that up, put that in a Ziploc bag. That way, whenever you're cooking, you could just go ahead and toss that into whatever you're cooking. It just makes it super easy. And then you have some preserved herbs that are fresh. Another way to kind of preserve them is the oil method. You really don't have to do much, is to just take whatever oil you want to use. You could add your rosemary, your oregano, and those all could also do the same method as we did, as I was saying with the basil, where you blend it up, add it
Mm-hmm.
with some of your oil, and freeze them and use them that way. That's what I found best to do for those crops. And then you could also air dry them by just hanging them up in a room that gets good ventilation and they dry well that way. Or you could put it in a dehydrator or just the lowest setting on your oven. But those are really good ways to kind of preserve those herbs. Or try your hand at even saving some and growing a tomato plant or two and making yourself some fresh tomato sauce.
Oh, I do plan on doing that.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I'm so excited for tomatoes.
That's my password for some of my things.
21. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Oh, thank you.
I think I did see a hand from TMG. I'm not sure. if I saw that correctly. Okay, maybe not. If there is any other questions and I didn't get to it here, feel free to send me an email. I listed my email in the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining me for another class. Make sure you're tuned in for the other class. It's coming in the next 2 weeks, same time, Thursday at 1. I believe we're going to go into succession planting, if I remember correctly. But whatever it is, it's going to be great and we're going to have a good time. And I hope to see a lot of you again for the next class. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your week. Yes, June 12th. Thank you so much. June 12th at 1. Thank you guys. Bye.